I guys my screen now.
Yes.
Yes, we have.
Okay. So like I said, objects are data types that has properties and values. And to create an object, we use curly braces, and then we put the value, sorry, the property, and then put a colon, and then provide the value, like this. And then we can create many property and value by adding comma, and then putting a new data, for example, age, or how 25, and another data type is 18. It's 18. Can be a Boolean value, which is true. I'm sure Damilola has treated data types such as strings, numbers, and Booleans. So now we need to put these objects into a variable. So we can say const person equal to the object that has these properties, name, age, and then it's 18. So now to get a value from an object, we call the name of the object, that is the variable we assign the object to, and then add a dot, and then we can get any property we want from that object. For example, you can get the name. So let's do console.log person name, and then let's run this on the browser. So I'm using an extension called Lifesaver, which will reload my browser if I make changes to my HTML file or JavaScript file. So you can install the extension if you want. So let me open the console. And here we have it. We have the James. So you can ignore all these red lines. It's because I'm using the Lifesaver. So we have James here. Let's try to log out the whole object. So we can remove the name. We'll have all the properties and their values like name, age, and is 18. So now let's add a new value to our person object. For example, person last name opposed to Mike. Now, as you can see, we don't have the last name on our object here, but we add it here. And it's okay, it will populate it to the object if we try to console.log to have name, age, and the last name, which we added here. Let's say we want to update the name to something different. We can say person.name. Let's say we want to change the name to Friday. We can change it like this to replace the value name to Friday, which we have it here. Now let's say you want to remove an object. Sorry, remove a property from an object. You can use the delete function, or yeah, it's an inbuilt delete is an inbuilt function which will remove. For example, you want to remove the is 18 property. You can say delete person.is 18, which will remove the is 18 property. Now you can do console.log person. As you can see, we won't have the is 18 property anywhere because we deleted it. Okay, and also you can create an empty object and then later populate it like this. See how this. Let's put it in. So as you can see, we have an empty object here, but we populate it by putting those properties we want to assign it and then their values, and we can have it here. So that's like the basic on objects, and the next thing is classes. So object and classes are kind of similar, but that's different. Now to declare a class, call the class keyword and then the name of the class, right? And then you put curly braces. Now classes has what they call a constructor. So a constructor is where you store arguments that you are going to pass to the class. Arguments are like values that we are going to use later in the future, but which we don't know the actual values yet. So for example, we can create a constructor and then put our parentheses, put our curly braces, and then in between the parentheses, we can declare our argument. For example, we can have name, age, and then we can set the properties of this name and age to the class property. For example, this of name is first name, and then this of age first age. Now, what we're doing here is that we're assigning this value name and this value age to the person class, and then we can be able to get these values by doing something like, for example, by creating a method called get age, for example, get age, and then we can still return this dot age. Now, since we already declared this dot age, it will return it, but if we don't, it will return null. Now, to be able to use this class, we have to create an instance of it. For example, you can see const Mike is equal to new person. We can pass those properties, Mike, and then the age, which is 30. Now, if you save this, what will happen? Or if you see console.log, Mike.get age. Now, the get age is a function that is declared inside the class. It can also be called a method. So it's run, because we added parentheses here, it will run and return this value, this is the age, and then which we use the console.log method to console.log it in the browser. Now let's save this. Like I said, we have 30. Let's take this to the next level. Let's change the argument. For example, let's have first name, then let's have last name. Then let's have our age. So now we can replace this name to first name, because to first name, and then this last name.
Hi, Usman. Sorry to distract the class. Some people are complaining that you're too fast. So maybe you can slow down a little bit. Can you please slow down a little bit? Some people are complaining that you're moving too fast for them.
Yeah, of course I will. Okay, so let me be moving slow now. So now let me try to do that all over again. So to declare a class, we have to use the class property and then the name of the class, and then we have what they call curly braces, and then in between the curly braces we can have properties of that class. For example, a constructor. A constructor is like an inbuilt property of a class, which will be run anytime you create a class, and it also contains the arguments you are passing to the class. So these are the arguments, Mike and Ted. The argument, you pass the argument in between a parenthesis when you are creating an instance of that class. Now, the constructor will handle each argument you pass to it and then try to manipulate it in its own way. For example, using the this keyword to store these values. The this keyword refers to this class, which is the person class. So it's like saying person dot first name, but in this case we're using this because this and person are like kind of the same thing. So we're saying this dot first name equals to first name. So now this first name here, we get it from the argument here. Then we have this dot last name equals to last name, and then this last name we get it from the argument here. And we have this dot age equals age. Now this age we get it from the argument here, age. Now we have what they call method, right? This method is called getAge, and also be called a function. So now this getAge does one thing only. It returns the age you pass to the argument, which is this dot age. So now we have 3 arguments here, and we're only passing 2 arguments. So we have to like pass 3 arguments. So we have to like pass last name argument, which is translated to James. Then we can save this. Now, let's say you want to create a method that returns the full name of the person, that is joining the first name and the last name. So you can create something like this: get full name, and this will be a function that will return this dot first name plus we have an empty string that has only space in it, and then plus this dot last name. So this is called a string concatenation. That is, we are joining 2 strings together. Now, what will happen if you remove this empty space, this space string in between them? So let's remove this and see. And then let's call the function this that get full name here. Get full name. Now we're going to have Mike James without space in between them. Now let's put that space back. We are going to have Mike and James plus the space which we added here. Now, there's another way to do this. We can use string literals. For example, we can say return and put this called a backtick.
Hi again. Sorry to distract the class. Please, can you slow down? It's quite hard to follow up.
Okay.
Yes, please just slow down. Take it step by step, very slowly, so everyone can easily follow up.
Okay. Okay, let me try to be slow. So this is called a backtick. So it can also be called a string literal. And we can use a backtick to add dynamic values to a string. For example, if we want to add this at first name and this at last name inside this backtick, we have to use a $sign and then a curly braces. And you can say this first name, then we can give out space inside the backtick, which can be mistaken for a quotation mark sometimes. And then we can add another $sign and then curly braces, and then we can add this last name. What this is doing is that it's almost doing the same thing as this first line of code. Now, as you can see, this line of code is almost blurred out because it's a comment. Now, a comment is like a comment in programming generally. It's your own way of telling someone who's reading your code what you did there. You can comment almost anything, even a line of code, you can comment it out. Now, to comment something out in VS Code, just press Control and then / to automatically comment it out, or you can add a double / to the beginning of that line of code. Now, so as you can see, we have a space here. So this space will be available anytime we return this get full name. Now let's save this and see we still have the same thing there. So string literals are a wise choice for when you have something complex. Like this is very simple. So if you don't want to use string literals, it's okay. But if you have something complex, like say for example, you have like a sentence, you want to, like, for example, my name is Mike James and I am 30 years old, then you have to use something like string literals. So let's do that. Let's see, get file. We have a method called get file, which will get file. So you can see, let's remove this, sorry. You can see my name is, we can put our $sign and curly braces, and then you can say this dot first name. Then we can add a space and then put the last name in the curly braces as well. This dot last name, and then we can put we can put the age. So with this dot age, let me make my screen wider for you to see. This dot age, you can put the age for it. Now, if we try to run this code, Mike.getFile, now let's see this. I'll have a complete sentence that is dynamic based on the data. So for example, let's say you are creating an instance of a new person. So let's say const John. Const John equals to new person. We have first name as John, last name as Doe, and age as 25. And then we say John get file. We'll have a complete different file with that of Mike. Now let's save this. As you can see, we have my name is John Doe and I'm 25 this week. Okay, so you can create as many instances of these classes as well. The class is just like a structure on how to declare other stuff. Basically, that's what the class is. So moving on, talk about string methods. So I don't know if I should be able to forward this code to you, but I'm sure this video is being recorded, so I think you will see everything in the video. So we have what they call string methods. So a string is something like this: const name is equal to and right. So my own subjective definition of a string is everything in between a quotation mark, either a single or a double quotation mark. As you can see, John Doe is in between the double quotation mark. So John Doe is a string. So now John Doe has methods, or a string has methods, right? we can be able to manipulate this string based on its method. For example, excuse me. For example, we have name dot sorry, something is wrong. Name dot. Now we can be able to get method of this. For example, name dot start with. Let's start with the basic. Sorry. So let's say we want to convert this name to lower cases. As you can see, John started with capital letter J and D. Doe started with capital letter. Let's say you want to convert the whole of this to lower cases. Do something like name dot to lowercase. Then we can console log it, console.log this. You can see we have entire of John Doe all in lower cases. John Doe all in lower cases. Let's say we want to convert it all to capital cases. You can see console.log name that's upper cases. Be mindful of the spelling of lower cases and upper cases. You can see like this is called a camel case. That is every letter, every word, apart from the first word, has its first character capitalized. For example, T is small letter, O is small letter, but as we start from a new word, which is lower, the first letter is capitalized. And a new word case, the first letter is capitalized. Same as uppercase as well. Now you can see we have John Doe, capital case, and John Doe is small case. So these are called string methods. We can use it to manipulate a string. Yeah. So let's do something different. So let's say const name. Let's say we want to split this name into two.
Sorry, please. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Please, what you used console.log. What does that do?
Okay, so there's something called a console, right? Can you like mute yourself?
Okay.
Okay, so there's something called a console, right? So this is a console. Now to open a console in the browser, right? Let me open a new tab, or let me just close this console. Now to open a console in the browser, you right click and then click on inspect, and then go to the console. Go to the console tab. You have some other tabs as well, which you can use to debug your code. But this is a console. So a console is where almost where you can use to debug your code in case you have an error. For example, this is an error. This is an example of an error. So you might encounter this error in your code, and all the errors will be pasted in the console. So a console is like where you go to like debug your code. And another shortcut to open a console is Control-Shift-I. Control-Shift-I. Sorry. Control-Shift-I. Sorry. Control-Shift-I. Yeah, if you're on Windows, it's Control-Shift-I. Just open the console. So that's what the console is. If you want to like know more information about the console, you can just easily browse it. I hope that answered your question. So moving on. So let's say we have a variable called full name, and it has the value John Doe in it. So let's say we want to split this value into two, right? We want to have like the first name, const first name, and then let's say empty string, and then we have const last name because the empty string. So let's say we want to put the value of John, which is the first name, to this first name variable, and then Doe, which is the last name, to this last name variable. How can we do that? So we can do that by saying, full name dot splits, and then in between the splits we have to pass in something. It's called an identifier. It can be used to identify where to split from. So split simply means to divide something into two, right? So if you want to divide something into two, let's say you want to divide a string into two, you have to like tell it where to divide from. So if you put an empty string, this is an empty string, nothing will happen. It will split every character, because in between every character there's an empty string. But if you want to split in where the space is, you have to put an empty space like this inside the parentheses of the split method, and then you have to choose the first value. But what happened here is that let me remove the first value, and then let me console it out into the log first name. Let me remove this. So this is what happens. We have an array that has two values, John and Joe. These are two separate values, John and Joe. They are no longer attached together. John and Joe. We have two values here. Now, the first value is what? The first value is the first name, and the second value is the last name. So if you want to get a value from an array, you have to do something like this. You have to pass in the index of that value. Remember, we start counting from 0 in programming. So the first name, which is John, is at index 0, while the last name, which is Doe, is at index 1. So if we have another third value, it will be at index 2, and so on and so on. Yeah. So we have first name because the full name that splits, and then we put in 0 here. So for the second name, we will have full name that splits. We'll have 1 here since the second name is at index 1. So now let's see control log.
Hello?
Hello, can you guys please mute yourself? If you have a question, just ask me. Okay. So let's console out the first name. Let's see. Our first name we have John right here. Now let's see console log last name. And so we'll have John and Doe. So we have successfully splitted this string of a person who has first and the last name of John Doe into two separate variables, first name and last name, and we are able to like print them out separately here. So this is called a split method, and it's also a string method. They are like tens of string methods, but at least this is what we're going to cover because of time. So moving on, we'll have string concatenation. I think I've already covered that. Concatenation is the process whereby you join two strings together. Are you like Benjamin? Can you mute yourself? It's echoing back. Okay, thank you. So concatenation is like the act of joining two strings together. Now we have two separate strings, first name and last name. So let's say we want to join this string together. We want to join the first name and the last name together. It's called concatenation. So you can see control log first name plus we put our empty space and then plus last name. Plus method helps us to add two strings together, first name plus an empty space and then plus last name. Now let's save this to have John Doe joined together. Okay, so moving on, we'll have getting started with Create React app. Okay, so let me see. So I've been trying to install this package for like, okay, yeah, it's successfully installed. So now, what is React? I think I won't jump into that for now. We'll know it, like we'll know what React is when we dive into code. So getting started with Create React app. Create React app is like the boilerplate of React, right? Whereby you can start writing your React code with minimum configuration. That you don't have to do a lot of setups to like start a React project. Create React app will cover all the unnecessary steps for you. So let me close this and let me open this code. So I have so this is a basic Create React app code. I will explain every file you see here. So let's start with node modules. Node modules is like packages, right? The packages you're going to use for your project. For example, even ReactJS is a package. So the React we're using is also installed inside these node modules, plus other packages as well that we are going to use in our project. For example, let me find the React. Like this is the React package that's also installed. We have stuff like ESL, prompts, we have other packages as well. So these are node modules. I'll explain them later in details. Now we have a public folder. So public folder are where your static files go to. For example, images that you're going to add to your website, they go into the public file. And also stuff like your favicon.ico. So the favicon.ico is actually this. Let me tell you what the favicon. So as you can see icons on these tabs. It's an icon. This icon that looks like the book, and this icon that looks like like a camera. So these are called favicons. Icon. They have that ICO file extension. Then you have the index.html inside this code. So index.html file is like the main HTML of your React application. It's like the entry file of your entire React code base. That is, this application cannot work without this index.html. Then you have some other images which come pre-configured with Create React app. These are React logos. Then you have manifest.json, this is used to tell the browser which, like, for example, which color to choose based on what they call PWA, progressive web apps. I'll come to that in details actually. But we have robot.tsx. This is to tell web engines, for example, web engines like Google. It's not like crawl some specific parts of your application. We'll come to that later in the future. Then we have SRC. So this is like where you actually write every code of your application. For example, we have app.css, contain our CSS file. We have app.js, app.test.js. Well, I will explain everything here later. Then we have git ignore. This is for GitHub. We'll explain later. Then we have package.json. So this package.json is like the configuration of your application. Like every details about your application will be stored in the package.json. For example, the name of your application, which I named this React Starter, the version of your application, the dependencies you are using. The dependencies are what get installed in the node modules. Then we have scripts. This is for Node.js to be able to run our application. Then we have ESLint. This is for like code quality. We have some other properties as well, which we'll get to later. So now, to create a React app, it's simple. All you have to do is make sure you have Node.js installed. I'm sure you guys have Node.js installed already. It's to have Node.js installed, and then open your terminal. Open your terminal. Let me just start from the beginning. So you can just go ahead to desktop, click a folder, call it my React app, then enter a folder. Then you can open this folder on your terminal. Now I'm running Windows 11. To open this folder in your terminal, just right click anywhere inside the folder, and then you can open in terminal. So you can click on this, open in terminal, and then now this folder is open in terminal. In case you're in any other version of Windows, to open this folder in terminal, you have to open the terminal. So to open a terminal, you have to like press your window key and search for a terminal. It's also called a command prompt, or PowerShell, or terminal, anyone. So you can open your terminal. Once the terminal is open, and you want to change the directory to like where your folder is, so you can just go to the address of the folder, copy the address, go back to the terminal, and then put CD, and then you paste that directory. Now, CD stands for change directory. So it will change the directory from C users to C users desktop, and then the folder, which is my React app. Then once you paste that, you press enter. Okay, let's see. Sorry, I don't know what's wrong, but it's supposed to work. But let's try it manually. So we can do something CD. You can choose desktop. You can do CD. You can move. You can like go to the folder manually by using this method, CD, and then find the folder which you created, which is called the React app. And then you are into the folder React app. Now, once you are into the folder called my React app, or it can be whatever you want. Now, mind you, I made a mistake here. I added spaces in this folder. This is not a bad thing, but if you are trying to make the name of your file the same name with the folder you created, then you should not add spaces when creating the folder. Rather, you should put something like a hyphen in between the spaces. Now, to create a file, you can do something like this: npx create React app. Now, npx, it's like npm, but if you are using npm to create React app, if you put npm here instead of npx, I'll explain what npm is. If you put npm here, it will download this create React app, install it globally on your laptop, and then create the app. If you're using npx, it will just create the app directly without installing it globally. Now, the third parameter you need to pass is the name of your application. For example, React Starter. Mind you, the name of our application must not contain any space, or rather, you can put hyphen instead of spaces. Now, this is a command to create a React app. And this here, last one here, is the name of your application. Now, let's say you want to use the same name as let's say you want to use the same name as your folder, or maybe you want to install that folder, because this will create a folder called React Starter. But if you don't want to create a folder called React Starter, you can just put a dots. Now, this will install it in the current directory without creating a new folder. Okay. So I've already installed mine. This will take hours to install, and I've started installing this like about an hour ago. So you can run this. Run this command to install to create a React app. Now, what is an npm? Let me explain what npm is. I think I have a little notes. Let me find the notes. I have links to what npm is. Okay, so it says understanding npm. Npm stands for the node package manager, and it consists of two main parts. First, npm is an online repository that is used in hosting node packages. Let me show you an npm. Let me go to the website of npm. Called npmjs.com. Now, this is a repository where you can host node packages. Every package you see is a node package that you can use in your node project. And then secondly, npm is a CLI, a command line interface. As I said, npx and npm are kind of related, but npm will download the file and install it globally before it creates your app, while npx will just create your app directly. So npm is a command line interface. Now, this is a command prompt. Everything you see here, it's command line interface. So npm is also a command line interface tool that can be used to download and publish node packages. Now, what we are doing here is actually downloading a node packages and then using it to create a React app. So we can use npm to download a React package and then use it to create a React app. So this is npm. So generally, npm is a Node.js package manager using publishing, downloading, and hosting of node packages. That's npm. I'll share this. Let me just share the link to you guys. Just get link. Let me share the links with you guys. Moving on, it's how React works. So from a subjective point of view, from my own point of view, React works similarly to a Lego. So what is a Lego? This is a Lego. It's like the building blocks of pieces that you can use to build something sophisticated. So because a React project is made up of reusable pieces of code, which are referred to as components. And these components can be brought together, just as how in Lego, to build something sophisticated. When these components are brought together, React creates what is called a virtual DOM. Now, a virtual DOM, unlike the real DOM, DOM stands for Document Object Model, which we use in JavaScript to manipulate how HTML elements appear on the web page. Let me show you what the DOM is. Now, assuming I press inspect and then click on element tab. Now, this is called a DOM. Every element is here. It's called a tree of elements. It's called a DOM. And I can be able to manipulate this DOM using JavaScript. So all I have to do is called documents. All the keyword in my console, I can say document. Sorry, documents. Now, document refers to everything on the web page. Document dots body refers to the body of the text document. Or we can say document dots. A document has properties. Right? I'm trying to find something here. Document has properties. These are the list of properties that DOM has, like query selector. These are used for selecting some specific elements on the web page. We have so many properties here, but I cannot go through them one by one. So this is what the document is. This is what DOM is, document object model. and you can access it using documents property. Just open your console, write documents. I can be able to manipulate it anyhow you want. So that's what DOM is, which we use in JavaScript to manipulate how HTML elements appear on the web page. React creates a virtual DOM. So instead of having a real DOM like this, React creates something called a virtual DOM. So there's why React created a virtual DOM is because a virtual DOM is like it's more safer and faster to update than a real DOM. So what happens is that once React creates, let me just stray away from my explanation and explain this in like a more elaborate way. So what virtual DOM actually does is that if a virtual DOM updates, it compares itself with the real DOM. And if, let's say, the real DOM is lacking an update, the virtual DOM will find that specific element or component that updated on itself and then update it accordingly in the real DOM. So it's like, instead of updating everything all at once, it updates a specific portion of it that changes. That's what happens with a real DOM and virtual DOM. So the next one we have is JSX. So what is JSX? JSX is a JavaScript syntax extension which involves embedding HTML in a JavaScript code. So here's an example of a JSX. I can see the function is a JavaScript inbuilt keyword, and all of these are JavaScript except for this, which are pure HTML. So the combination of JavaScript and HTML is called a JSX. Okay, so moving on, we'll get into code. So let me explain the package that JSON file. So now let me explain the script. Property of the package. So to start the React app, all you have to do is until David and then run npm run stars. What happens is that npm will find a function, right? Or will find a property that has value stats inside script tag. A script tag is a way of running, it's a way of manipulating the node modules of project. So for example, npm run start to look for a property that has a start with it. For example, just inside the script object to look for any property that has a start and run that command. And this has a start. So to start a React app, actually you need to run React script starts, but this start will run the entire of this code for you. So to start a React app, just need to run npm run start, then press enter. Now this will start our React app. It will take a little bit while, so let's just wait. So this will start a React app. With the start React app we have there, and then automatically open the link of that project in our browser, which is usually localhost 3000. So it's still building, starting the server, and successful. So once any project you create using this React app have this interface, this built in. So let's dive through this interface. You can locate this file, you go into the app.js. So as you can see here, we have two JavaScript files. Just don't worry about this setup. Let me just remove them for now. We're going to see them later, but not now. And it's really important to what we're doing here. So let's remove setup.js and app.js. And we can leave this one. Don't use it actually, but we can leave it for now. So we have app.js. So app.js contains every code. Let me the browser side aside. So app.js, which is here, contains every code you see here on this browser. For example, we'll have this text, edit codes here, CRS, app.js, and save to reload. We have it here. And then we have a link, which is this actually. And then we have this logo. It's an image tag, which is this. So this is actually called a JSX code. Also, instead of saving this as a JS file, we can save it as the JSX file. and it will still work the same, because the JS and the JSX are almost basically the same thing, except the JSXI specifically for JSX file, which is this action. So let me explain this code. First, we have a function. Now the function is the main entry of our file, and then we export the function, create a function called app, and then we export the function. Now inside the function, we return this HTML code. Now anything we return inside a function will be what will be the thing that will be rendered in our HTML. And let's remove all this and see. Let's do it. Now we'll have a blank canvas, or we'll have an error rather. We need to pass something in between in the return statement, so we can add. Let's add empty div. As I see, we have some empty blank canvas, a blank document body here. So we can be able to add our normal HTML element, for example, h1, React. So this, I can see our text will appear here. And you can write almost every element in between the return statement, every function. Now, what happened here actually is that this function of app that we exported is actually being imported in this index.js. It's being imported and then getting rendered. Now, let me explain every code here. Now, normally I explain to you in the public folder, we have what they call an index.html file. And I said to you, this is like the main entry of our application. That is our entire code. This code cannot run without entire of this code. Actually, it can run without some parts of this code. For example, we can remove this title if we want. Our code will still run. But it cannot run without this div with an ID of root. So the div with an ID of root is actually what rendered our application here. For example, let's go back to the index.js. Now, this is our index.js. Now, let me explain this first. Now, React. Now we have what they call const root, because to React DOM.create root. Now this will create a virtual DOM, as I explained to you, inside an element. That element is root, is a div with an ID of root. This div. And I explained to you, document has properties like property used to find to target some specific elements. So we have documents that get element by ID. So this document that get element by ID is targeting these elements, this root element, and then inside this root element, it's rendering our app function, which is this one, the one we export here and then import it here. Here's where we import it, and here is where we use it. Don't worry about this React history. I'm going to explain it later. So I have this app component being rendered. That means if we comment this out, let me comment it properly. Let's say if you remove this out and save, nothing will get rendered here. See, then if we put it back, we come back, and let me show you something again. If you remove this div and save, nothing will get rendered. If you put it back, we get rendered because it's targeting this div with an ID of root. So what next on the agenda? What's next topic? So we cover dynamic content, states, and props. Okay, so let me explain what state is. So assuming you want to have like a counter app, whereby once you press a number, let me just make minus indicators. So here's what we want to do. When we press the plus button, we want this number to increase by 1. And when we press the minus button, we want this number to decrease or reduce by 1. So we need something that's called a state. Now to declare a state in React, we have to call something like this. We have to call we have to import a function called useState. But to be able to use it, you have to import it from React. So you can do like something like imports from React. Then we pass use states in between these audit bases. So we are simply importing this function from React. And I told you React is a node packages which perform a specific function, and it exports like different functionalities to this. One of the functionality is use state. So use state will store this variable. Will have an initial value which is 0 for now, and then it has two. We destructure whatever this use state returns. So we can remove this. We can have like a single value. Have like a single value, for example, and say counting. Now, this counting that's getting returned from this use state is actually an array. And I told you an array is like a list of items, right? So we can be able to destructure this array. Since it returns only 2 items, we can be able to destructure it and assign a value this to each of the items. For example, the first value it returns is a variable that stores a value, while the second variable it returns is a function we can use to update this value. Now, let me add this count value here. So we want to be showing the value of this count in between this H1. Do this. We have to put a curly braces in between the H1 tag and then put our count value here. This count value here. Now, let's save this. You'll see this term is here. Now, we want to create a function, right, that update the value of this count based on the key we press here. So we can have an on-click event on this button. For example, we can have an on-click. You can say it's equal to. Now this is an arrow function. I hope I'm sure Daniela like teach you guys about arrow functions. So we have two types of functions generally in JavaScript. We have the normal function, which is something like this, which we use the normal function keyword to create it, and we have what they call an arrow function. Let me make everything here. Let's create two functions. Let me remove all this code. Let's create two functions. So we want to create a function called increment. And anytime we create this function, right, we want to update the value of this count by 1. So I told you set count, update the value of this value here, of this state variable. So you can do something like set count equal to count plus 1. The reason why we have count plus 1 is that we are adding 1 to the previous value of count. So if count is 0, so 0 plus 1 is 1. And if count is 1, 1 plus 1 is 2. Then let's create another function called decrement. It sets the value of count minus 1. Increment add 1 to it, and decrement move 1 from it. So let's add this function to their respective button. For example, and click, you say increment. And then on the minus, we'll have on click, and we'll have decrement. And let's see this. Now here's where the magic happens. Now, anytime we click on plus, as you can see, it's increased by 1. I click on plus again, always increase by 1. And if you click on minus, it's decreased by 1. So this is called dynamic values, dynamic content with states and props. We have created dynamic content here based on the value. So let's sorry, excuse me. Can you guys hear me? Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes, bro.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
So yeah, can we go back 5-minute break? We'll still be on the call, but we're muted for like 5 minutes.
Oh, okay.
All right. think she's going to break now.
Okay. So we are back. So before I continue, anybody have a question? Is there any question before I continue?
Yes, I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
So the question is that when you wanted to start the React app, you made use of the command nps create React app using that
Yes.
Windows command prompt. So my question now is that is it necessary we make use of the Windows command prompt, or we can also make use of the VS Code terminal to run the command?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yes, you can be able to use the VS Code terminal. So you can just press the terminal and then it will pop up. Yeah, you can use the terminal to create or start the object. Anyone you prefer.
All right, thank you. So
Any
another
other question?
question is, yeah.
Okay.
So my other question is, when you import the use state from the React file or whatever, so when you import the use state,
Yeah.
and and you destructured the use state, that was when you're able to make use
Yeah.
of that count. So I want to know,
Exactly.
is it that the use state came with many components aside that count, or the use state of index 0 is just meant for count?
Exactly. Then yeah, let me explain. So use state actually returns an array. For example, it returns an array, right? So you can be able to destructure that array and give name to these values you destructure. And it only has two values only. The first value, which is at index 0, and the second value, which is at index 1. So the first value at index 0 is a variable, right? It's a value. Whatever the use state has as initial value or any updated value, that's what this first value is, which is count. By the way, you can be able to like name this whatever you want. It can be CNT or whatever you want. And the set count is a function that can be used to update the value of the use state. So it only returns two values, right? First is a value, and the second is a function that can be used to update that value. If that answers the question.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, any other question?
I have a question, please.
Okay.
All right. So after initializing the React app on the VS Code, I'm trying to view the files, and the logo on the public folder is saying the documents are invalid. Can you help with that?
Hello.
Hello, can anyone hear me?
Yes, I can.
Maybe his network is not working well or something.
What's going on now?
I think he's having network issues because he just left.